Hi Scholar, welcome to Post Scholars channel. If you are seeing this video for the first time, you are a special person and I celebrate you with an online case. Mwah. If you are already a subscriber, I love you more. So the title of this video is Subtraction in Order Number Basis, right? So there are 5 questions we are going to solve together. All I need from you now is to sit back and relax while I try as much as possible to make sure you understand every bit of it. So we start with question 1. Now question 1 says 100 base 2 minus 11 base 2. Solution. Question 1. 100 base 2 minus 11 base 2. Good. Before I solve this, I need you to understand that there is a difference between base 10 and order number base. The normal counting we know are always in base 10, right? And if you are working with base 10, the digits are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 9, right? So if you add everything like this, you have 10 digits, right? 0 inclusive. Now, similarly, for base 2 number, the digits are just 0 and 1. For base 3, the digits are just 0, 1, and 2. And it goes on and on like that. The trick is that the digits must be lesser than the base, right? Now, let's solve. But before we solve, let's quickly solve let's subtract 2 numbers using the normal method we know. Let's use 53 minus 29. Yes, 53 minus 29. Now, how do you go about this? You start by saying 3 minus, please, minus. You start by saying 3 minus 9. This is impossible, right? So you borrow from 5. When you borrow 1 from 5, you are left with 4, right? Then the one you borrowed from 5 takes the value of 10 because you are working in base 10 now. Then you add that 10 to 3. So 10 plus 3 gives what? 13. So this becomes 13. Now you can say 13 minus 9. And 13 minus 9 gives what? 4. So what's left? 4 minus 2, which gives what? 2. So the final answer is what? 24. And this is the normal method of subtraction we all know, which is always in base 10. But now, the problem we have here is in base 2. Now listen attentively while I solve this. You start from the extreme right. We are subtracting. You say 0 minus 1. 0 minus 1 is not possible. So you borrow from this 0, but it's not possible also since it's 0. Now you borrow from 1. When you borrow 1 from 1, you are left with 0. The one you borrowed from this one takes the value of what? 2. Add the 2 to this 0. 2 plus 0 gives what? 2. Trying to subtract for this column, right? Similarly, you borrow 1 from 2. When you borrow 1 from 2, you are left with what? 1. That particular one you borrowed from 2 takes the value of what? 2. So you add it to this 0. 2 plus 0 gives what? 2. Now you can say 2 minus 1, which gives what? 1. Then 1 minus 1 gives what? 0. And 0 minus nothing gives what? 0. And that's our final answer in B is what? 2. Take note, you can still write it as 1 base 2, which is your final answer. Reason being that this 0 is actually what? Insignificant. Now we move to the next question, which is question 2. And question 2 says 1011 base 3 minus 212 base 3. 1011 base 3 minus 212 base 3. Now you listen. We'll start from the extreme right. 1 minus, we are working with subtraction, please. 1 minus 2 is not possible. You borrow from 1. When you borrow 1 from 1, you are left with 0. The one you borrowed from here takes the value of what? 3, which is added to this one to give what? 4. Now you can subtract by saying 4 minus 2 gives 2. Next, 0 minus 1, impossible. You can't borrow from this 0. Rather, you can borrow from this one. When you borrow 1 from 1, it's left with 0. Then the one you borrowed from this one takes the value of what? 3, which is added to this 0 to give you 3. Then you also remember we are working with this column. We are trying to subtract this column. It's not possible. That's why we started borrowing. Borrow 1 again from this 3. You are left with what? 2. The one you borrowed from this 3 takes the value of what? The base, which is 3, which is added to 0. 3 plus 0 gives what? 3. Now you can say 3 minus 1, which gives what? 2. Then 2 minus 2 gives what? 0. And 0 minus nothing gives what? 0. All in base what? 3. This is the final answer, and it can also be written as 2, 2 base what? 3. Remember, 2 zeros here, they're actually what? Insignificant. Question 3. 4013 base 5 minus 234 base 5. So let's solve. 4013 base 5 minus 234 base 5. Subtraction. Now, from the extreme right, 3 minus 4 is impossible, right? So you borrow from this one. When you borrow from this one, you are left with what? 0. The one you borrow takes the value of what? 5, which is added to 3. 5 plus 3 gives 8, right? Now you can subtract. 8 minus 4 gives 4. 0 minus 3 is impossible. You can't borrow from this 0, but you can borrow from 4. When you borrow 1 from 4, it reduces to 3. The one you borrowed from 4 takes the value of what? The base, which is 5. 5 plus 0 gives what? 5. Again, you borrow from 5. When you borrow 1 from 5, it reduces to 4. The one you borrowed from 5 takes the value of the base, which is 5, which is added to the 0 to give you 5. Now you can subtract. 5 minus 3 gives 2. Then 4 minus 2 gives 2. And lastly, 3 minus nothing gives 3. Base 5. And this is the final answer. I believe it is well understood. We'll move on to the fourth question. The fourth question says D94C base 16 minus 89CE base 16. Don't be scared seeing these letters, right? Now this base 16 simply means hexadecimal. We are counting in hexadecimal. So let's write down the question first of all. Question 4. It says D94C minus 89CE, right? Base 16 and base 16. If you count in base 16, this is how you actually count in base 16. You start by saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You don't end there. Now, instead of saying 10, you write A, B, C, D, E, F. Now, these are you actually count in hexadecimal, right? These are you count in hexadecimal, where A represents 10, B represents 11, C represents 12, D represents 13, E represents 14, and F represents 15. Since we are working in base 16, you should know that the last value should be 15. Do you understand? Now we can subtract. We already know that C, right? C takes the letter what? 12. C represents 12. So I can simply write it on top so that to be easy for us. Then E represents 14. E represents 14. I also write it there, write it on it so that it will be easier. Then D represents 13. D represents 13. I'll write it here. And I think the last letter here is C. C represents 12. C represents 12. So I'll write it on it. Good. Now let's subtract. We start by saying 12 minus 14. 12 minus 14 is impossible. You borrow 1 from 4. When you borrow 1 from 4, it reduces to 3, right? Then the one you borrowed from 4 takes the value of 16, which is the base. Then 16 is added to 12. 16 plus 12 gives 28. Yes. Now you can subtract 28 minus 14, right? Because E represents 14. 28 minus 14 gives what? 14. So instead of writing 14, you already know that 14 represents what? E. So write down what? E. Next, 3 minus 12. This is not possible, so you borrow 1 from 9. When you borrow 1 from 9, it reduces to 8. Then the 1 you borrowed from 9 takes the value of the base, which is 16. 16 plus 3, that should be 19. You don't need this again. Then 19 minus 12. 19 minus 12 gives you 7, right? Moving on, 8 minus 9. 8 minus 9 is not possible. You borrow 1 from 13. When you borrow 1 from 13, it reduces to 12. Similarly, the 12 you borrowed, the one you borrowed from 13 takes the value of 16, which is added to 8. 16 plus 8 gives what? 24. We no longer need this. Now you can subtract. 24 minus 9 gives, that's 15. 24 minus 9 gives 15, and 15 represents letter what? F. So just write down F here. And lastly, we have 12 minus 8. 12 minus 8 gives you 4. And this is your final answer, all in base 16. Simple and straightforward. Now, the last question. 21.11 base 3 minus 1.221 base 3. Take note, this is also supposed to be in base 3. So let's write it. Now let's solve it quickly. Question 5. It says 21.11 base 3 minus, okay, let's arrange it first of all, 1.221. Now the spaces will be filled up with 0, 0, and 0. Subtraction. Now let's subtract. We are starting from the last column, the right side. 0 minus 1 is impossible. You borrow 1 from this one, which reduces to 0. The one you borrowed takes the value of 3, which is added to this 0. 3 plus 0 gives 3. Now you can subtract by saying 3 minus 1, which gives what? 2. Next, 0 minus 2. This is impossible. You borrow 1 from this one, which reduces to 0. The one you borrowed from here takes the value of 3, which is added to this 0. 3 plus 0 gives 3. So we no longer need this. Now you can subtract. 3 minus 2 gives 1. Now 0 minus 2. Impossible again. You borrow 1 from this one. This reduces to 0. The one you borrowed from this one takes the value of 3, which is the base. Now add 3 to this 0. This also gives 3. We no longer need this. Now you can subtract. 3 minus 2 gives 1. Then your points. Now moving on. 0 minus 1. Impossible. Borrow 1 from 2. This reduces to 1. Then the one you borrowed from this 2 takes the value of 3, which is added to what? 0. 3 plus 0 gives 3. You no longer need this. Now you can subtract. 3 minus 1 gives 2. And 1 minus 0 gives 1, all in base 3. Now we have come to the end of this video. I believe it is well understood. Now you should be able to do any subtraction involving any base at all. Thank you and God bless you. See you in my next video, and bye.